Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist. Stay for this video. I want to talk about, topics that are uncomfortable. I know there's people with different opinions, and that's always fine. It's always good to have a reasonable, adult discussions, mature discussions. Sometimes you don't see all that much of that. Sometimes you see a lot of propaganda going on, it's not even people, it's simply bots. I sometimes click, especially on the pro-Russia stuff, I click on it and it's always some bullshit account that has like a song uploaded and something, little clips of nothingness basically, and even the lines that they repeat are literally the same or with slight modifications from one to the other. So you have Russian bots, right? Now you also have people that fall for the propaganda, and you have people that are honestly true believers in communism, and they think that yes, the left is right and the conservative capitalist mentality is wrong and it should be destroyed. So you have true believers, you have things that are not even humans that are posting online and pretending to be, and then of course you have people. I of course try to delete all of the crap that I find in my channel whenever someone presents a different opinion, as long as it's done respectfully, which is not always the case, but sometimes you're just insulted, and of course I don't put up with that crap either. But I have some long time subscribers to my channel that, hey, no, Fernando, you got it wrong, you don't understand, Russia is really holding the line against the woke agenda and stuff like that, and I see that they're falling for this narrative, this line. Now, what I want to talk specifically in this video is, where is the line, right? Where is the line where you're, like Tucker Carlson said himself so many times, I'm rooting for Russia, okay? Okay, so you want Russia to win because you believe in communism. You are a die-hard left-winger, which, I'm surprised by how many people don't apparently know this. The left supports Russia. The left supports Russia because they like the idea of a Soviet regime, similar to the one you have in China, similar to the one you currently have in Russia. And the idea of rebuilding the Soviet empire is something that definitely appeals to them. It appeals to people in Cuba. It appeals to people in Venezuela. I'm talking about the governments, right? The politicians in these horrible places. They all support communism. They all support the left. They all support Russia. Now, there's a very strange thing going on where the left and part of the right comes together in love and appreciation for Russia. It's very interesting to see this, but you have to realize something here. You can't be rooting for Russia and claim to be a patriotic American. You can have different opinions regarding why things started, as we talk with Matt so many times. This is like something, you go walking in a dangerous neighborhood and you get hurt, and well, you knew what could have happened there. Okay, you can have different opinions regarding that, but if you're truly rooting for Russia, like it's the case of Tucker Carlson, which it's one of the more in-your-face, obvious disconnections. If you're rooting for Russia, you're not rooting for America, because the United States is the sworn enemy of Russia. And even if you don't feel that way, it doesn't change the opinion from Russia, from the government, from Vladimir Putin, and from the great majority of people in Russia that are absolutely certain that America and Americans are their sworn enemies. This has been the reality for decades. For as long as I can go back, it's been that way in my lifetime. Russia considers the United States its greatest enemy, responsible for the fall of the Soviet Union. Definitely Vladimir Putin thinks the same way, and he repeats this all the time. And that's the position that they have. Even if you don't feel that same way, even if in your heart you say, but I love Vladimir Putin, I think he's a great guy, I think Russia is a fabulous country, and I wish we could have our little communist dictator ourselves instead of this creepy old man that doesn't even remember people that died just days ago, right? Even if you feel that way, it does not change the fact that Russia considers the United States its worst sworn enemy. You are in a moment in history where we've never been this close to a nuclear conflict, right? And there's different. I want to do a dedicated video regarding exactly what that could potentially involve. Where would those strikes be? What would be a line that Russia is not okay with crossing? What's a line that United States or even Europe is not okay with crossing? So that doesn't change the fact that we are in one of the most complicated moments in terms of a potential third world war. That is very much true than we've been in a very long time. But if you don't see that Russia is the enemy of the United States, you live inside a freaking can of beans. You don't see what they are saying themselves. This is what they do all the time. They constantly attack the United States through their propaganda. They install it. This is very much like North Korea. In North Korea, they hate your guts. Oh, but why? We didn't do anything to North Korea. It doesn't matter. Their idea of their worst possible enemy, the opposite of what they supposedly represent, is the United States. For North Korea, their sworn enemy is America. For Russia, it's the exact same thing. For Russia, you guys are their sworn enemy. Even if you don't feel the same way, it does not change this fact. So you can say that you are rooting for Russia, right? But if you're an American, then you really put yourself in a position where you're rooting for what? Your sworn enemy? You're rooting for the person, for the dictator like Vladimir Putin, for the country that is most likely to end up in a nuclear exchange with you? And this is where I find myself today watching InfoWars, right? You have the Alex Jones media outlet. Now, I'm not a fan of Alex Jones. I've never been. I've always thought that he was always kind of in the fringe of the, some of the conspiracy theory. That it's not so much conspiracy. Yeah, he does touch on some of those topics, but most of what I find from him, it goes beyond that into the bizarre, fantasy insanity, like what happened with Sandy Hook. For me, Sandy Hook, the idea of monetizing the way he did such an awful tragedy, that is unforgivable. I mean, that's something you don't fuck with. You don't mess with people losing their kids. Now, there's people in the world that are willing to do absolutely everything. They will capitalize and monetize the worst possible tragedies you can think of and not bat an eye. They will not give a fuck. That's this man. So that's why I have no belief in anything that he says. Now, I know that lots of you guys do. And I know that lots of you guys watch this and go to this website. And what I'm seeing here, this is insanity. Because if you're an American and you're reading this and you cannot tell that RT is Russian TV, RT is the official media outlet of Russia. This is directly publishing Russian propaganda in the United States at the moment in which you're the most likely to end up, the closest you've ever been to end up in a nuclear exchange with Russia, and you're eating Russian propaganda. This is the kind of thing that is, it's weird, it's strange that you cannot tell that, yeah, you have these two articles, and I don't even bother checking the rest, but I've seen this for a long time, or even since before the start of the war. Exactly why this is, well, here is where you have to ask yourself, why is this happening? Why am I eating Russia propaganda? Okay, admit the facts. That's what you're doing. When you're reading this, you are consuming what Vladimir Putin wants you to consume. So maybe you do believe that this is a great man and Russia is fantastic and the United States, as Tucker Carlson said, is a terrorist nation, which is kind of fucked up if you think about it, because that is not exactly a patriotic view to have of your own country. This is the kind of thing you look at Iran, the Muslim radicals, right? People are talking so much about this woman Meloni, right, the prime minister of Italy. Now, that woman is against the left. That woman is die-hard conservative, in the traditional sense of the word. Now, that woman will not say that Italy is a terrorist state. In fact, you don't see many people that feel or consider themselves patriotic call their own country a terrorist state. That is, again, that is one of the similarities that some people in the right, or in the theoretical right, I don't even know how to call it anymore, but that's something that some people in the right and the far left lunatics actually share. The idea of bending the knee during the national anthem in a sign of disgrace, and turning away when you see the flag because it offends you so much. Well, yeah, it's kind of the same thing. You're calling your own country a terrorist nation. Now, I'm not naive. I know exactly what the engine of the American economy is war. We all understand that. We're not kidding ourselves here. We get that. The idea of benefiting economically from the military contracts, the manufacturing of arms, weapons, and it's not just about guns. It's an entire economy that revolves around the military aspect of your national industry, right? And that's what feeds the elites in the United States. That's also what trickles a little bit of money to the rest. So the economy of the United States needs to have insane, disproportional amount of military spending. And if you're going to be justifying an insane, disproportional amount of military spending, you need to somewhat make people think you actually need that. Because if not, you end up in the position where many of the NATO allies find themselves, which is, right, we have to spend how much of our GDP in the military? It makes no sense for us. It makes sense for you because that's how your country works. Doesn't make sense for us. So when Trump was explaining to them, oh, yeah, you're not spending as much money as you should, they were all like, yeah, we get it. Now, of course, when you have a threat like you have right now with Russia, which according to many of you, it's not a real threat. This is something that he was pushed into this position. He was never intending to do any of this. It was just all a sad coincidence. Well, now that people realize that they should have been spending more, yeah, they're hurrying up, they're rushing things, and they'll get by. If you look at it in the long term, Ukraine is by far, of course, the one that is going to be worse off with all of this. And if things, somewhat remain in a non-insane reality, cooler heads will prevail and World War III will not happen. But we've never been closer than we are right now. But you have to ask yourself, why is it that you see the conservatives, or at least some conservatives or some self-claimed conservatives, have this position where they're directly republishing Russian propaganda directly from Russia? It is beyond insane for me, because I can look at it from a few perspectives. Because I know what happens when you end up in this, bizarre world, because I've seen this when this happened. And yes, time to plug my books, Surviving the Economic Collapse, for the preparedness for some of this stuff you're seeing in the economic aspect, and street survival skills, the practical aspect. Over 1,000, close to 1,100 reviews. So if you liked any of my books, it would be appreciated if you take a second and leave the review over there in Amazon. Now, when I went through that, I saw some of the weird things, and all of a sudden, a conservative journalist or news personality, someone that you had a trust in, faith in, all of a sudden changed his narrative, and this happened. And later we understood that he was being bought, he was being paid. Now, that would be my first assumption. When I see someone like this publishing, because it's not even hitting a little bit, it's directly, and the main article is no evidence U.S. involved in Nord Stream pipeline attack because Pentagon says so, like implying that, yes, of course the United States is lying, of course we attacked. Now, the insanity of suggesting that the United States attacked the pipeline in Europe, it makes zero sense. You don't have a single reason for doing that. In what way does it benefit the United States? Again, in the moment that you're closest ever to a nuclear war with Russia, you're just about in the doors of Third World War, you're gonna be blowing up the pipeline, doing a huge favor for Russia that does not want to send gas to Europe does not want to have the obligation to be fulfilled. Not only that, they've done it before. This is something I forgot to mention in the previous video. Russia has already blown up another gas pipeline in Ukraine when the war started. That was one of the first things they did. They blew up a pipeline, they blow up another, and this creates several aspects where they're being benefited. The price of the gas that they're still selling goes up. You're limiting the potential access, not only right now, because of course there's no intention of sending any gas at all. You're making it even impossible if there's a change of regime later on. So even if someone says, okay, maybe we should end this insanity, bring Putin down from within, someone within Russia, and we'll go back to the good old times where we were not crazy. Well, whoever replaces Putin, he will not be able to use that. So that means he's less likely to be replaced. I mean, this is not accidental. We all agree with that. But the implication of who's being benefited from this, it's only Russia. Why on earth, why the fuck would the United States attack Europe when you're looking at a potential third world war against Russia and you're backstabbing your only ally, basically? You're backstabbing your other NATO member countries? Why would you ever attack other NATO members? Why? So as to have what? What benefit does that bring the United States? None. Zero. There's nothing. There's not a single benefit that the United States or Europe gets from blowing this up. Again, he did it before, he did it again, and this is why, even in their own media, they don't even talk about it. Now, it's very interesting, though, because you don't hear this being talked even in Western media. Why is that? Well, there's obviously a few reasons for that. There's no interest in bringing up to light, exposing that Russia did blow up infrastructure that could even remotely be considered an attack on a NATO member. Because if that's the case, there could be people calling for a NATO response to that. So the media in the United States is staying hush-hush. The media in Russia is staying hush-hush because objective achieved. They blew up what they want to blow up, and that's the end of it. Let's go back to whatever other aspect of war there is. Now, you cannot be naive regarding these things. But the idea of using this as what? Why is it that people on the right are spreading Russia propaganda? And by people, I'm not saying people that have a specific opinion. I'm talking about people that have the power to make this happen. People like Tucker Carlson, people like Alex Jones, and you have a media outlet. This is all an editorial decision. You're not publishing. I mean, even in my little channel, I don't allow Russia propaganda because I just don't stand for that crap. If you have a media outlet as big as this is a decision that you didn't take lightly. Why are you publishing propaganda directly out of Russia? Well, you could say that you're using this to hurt Biden because he's a senile old man, and Democrats have gone full left wing. Which, by the way, I mean, you're probably happy with it because that's what Russia stands for as well. If you think that Russia stands for anything other than far left communism, then you're insane. I mean, you've lost the perspective of what these people are all about. A communist regime, a commie dictator, former KGB, Russia, and former Soviet Union, as I explained before. This is new, guys. The idea of themselves calling themselves now former Soviet Union, this was not there a few months ago. This is new stuff. So, anyway, you're standing against Joe Biden, which is the puppet of the left in America and in many aspects in the rest of the world. But at the same time, the left is what Russia is all about as well. When you go from using this as a weapon to attack the left in the United States or Biden or Democrats, what's the line in which you start attacking your, not just a political faction, but your entire country, calling your entire country the reason for the war to begin with? This was not Russia's fault. This was the fault of the West. We started it. Okay, we're terrorists as well. Okay, then you're what? You're standing against your own country? You're considering becoming a Russian ally and sabotaging from within? Where does that end? I mean, if you're so certain that the United States is the worst crap that ever happened to mankind, I mean, move to fucking Russia. Maybe that's where you'll be at home. If you hate the United States so much that you're publishing RT News propaganda shit, then maybe that's where you should be. At the same time you're doing that, you're shitting on your intelligence agency, which of course, no one is naive here. We all get it. We all understand what the CIA does and has done for, again, for half a century, maybe even more. But especially with the interventions in Middle East, yes, of course, interventions in South America, always seeing what regime benefits them the best and, financing one side or the other. In my country, in the case of Argentina, financing the junta, the military dictatorship that we had, and was pretty bloody, pretty messy. At the same time, you also had a civil war going on where you had damn commies like these assholes, right, operating in the country. And they're still doing the same thing now. They're still operating in South America, in Chile, Venezuela. They're about to get rid of Bolsonaro in Brazil and put damn Lula again in power. Who do you think finances all of that? China and Russia, of course, the enemies of the West, the enemies of the United States. But if you find yourself in a position where, because Biden bad, Putin good, so I stand with Russia, go comrade, man, I think you should reconsider your priorities and where you stand in terms of love for your own nation and what loyalties you have. I'll be the first one to admit, yes, the United States has done awful things. Yes, of course, military interventions, thousands of innocent lives lost because of pure greed, because of oil, because of military contracts, because of political and military power and influence all over the world. Yes, fantastic. That does not mean that when a dictator like Putin invades a neighboring nation out of nowhere, that is justified. Oh, because we're also bad, Fernando. We're also terrible. Okay, this is a poor excuse. Like, so yeah, they are bad, but we are even worse. Anyway, guys, just a few thoughts here. I was honestly, when I saw this, I mean, I've seen in InfoWars several of these pieces of Russian RT News published all the time, and this thing, anti-American or anti-current. I mean, what would be the case if it was? What happens when if Trump wins? If Trump wins, what? The CIA is now good again? We're good? We're anti-Russian? Is that how it goes? Let me know in the comments section. I'd like to know what would happen if today, instead of Biden, Trump was the one standing. And in theory, according to Trump himself, I know that some of you guys live up inside Trump. According to Trump himself, when he talked with Putin, he said, Vlad, if you invade Ukraine, I'm bombing Moscow. That's what he said. So you either believe him or not, but in theory, or at least according to Trump himself, that's the conversation that went on. So if that would be the case, then what? You would be opposing Russia and thinking that, no, it turns out that the United States is not a horrible terrorist state. We're actually not that bad. We have some good things about us, and we are much better than a fucking commie dictator in Russia. Guys, it's going to be all for now. See you in our next video. Take care.